Hey Star Wars fans, Nathan Alex Xavier here. I'm just doing a video based on a topic that's really intrigued me lately. It basically all started up when there was this huge fan backlash against this one premise, so to speak, for the new Star Wars films, or at least in terms of one specific character, Rey. The fans basically were all up in arms, etc., when it was announced by the powers that be at Disney slash Lucasfilm that Luke Skywalker's lightsaber slash Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber was now being dubbed as Rey's lightsaber. The fans were basically, pissed off and stuff about this, saying that no, it can't be hers, it's Luke Skywalker's lightsaber or it's Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber, and basically refusing to accept that the lightsaber has now pseudo changed ownership. Basically, they're unable to accept that that it is now, for all intents and purposes, Rey's lightsaber. This got me thinking a lot about the lightsaber itself and why they would have made this decision to dub it now Rey's lightsaber, and what I feel the lightsaber itself actually represents. I feel that the lightsaber itself has basically got to it's basically Excalibur is what I'm trying to say. I don't think the lightsaber, Anakin's lightsaber, or the Skywalker lightsaber, is really, so to speak, a weapon, or predominantly a weapon in these films, or even in just the entire Star Wars saga. Now, I think it's kind of elevated now to the status of symbolic. I think it's more of a symbol. That's what it acts as. And to be honest, I think that it has acted as that pretty much since the beginning, or at least since Revenge of the Sith. I think the last time that the Skywalker lightsaber was really used as a Jedi weapon, or even just primarily a weapon, was by Anakin Skywalker himself in Revenge of the Sith. If you look back to A New Hope slash Star Wars, I absolutely hate calling it A New Hope. I can't stand calling it that. If you look back to the original Star Wars film, the lightsaber itself, it was never really, I don't feel that it was ever really passed to Luke for its intended use to be as a weapon. I don't think that's what the point was when Obi-Wan gave the lightsaber to Luke. And right now I'm going to reference another YouTuber, Prince, the Urban Acolyte, as he's known on YouTube, and he did a video similar to this, and I actually saw that, and that's what kind of inspired this video. He used a term that I think is very relevant. He kept using the term the call to action, or the calling to destiny and adventure, the call to adventure, I believe he said. And that got me thinking a lot about the lightsaber, how it's acted and how it was used in the original Star Wars film, and how it was used in The Force Awakens, and basically the general role that it played. In the original Star Wars film, this is where it comes into my theory. I don't feel that the lightsaber was really passed to Luke for its intended use of being a weapon. I feel that it was passed to Luke for its intended use of being a symbol. That's what it was. It was a symbol. It was the symbol for Luke's calling, his call to adventure. Because if you remember in that specific scene between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke, Obi-Wan gives the speech basically about how he's too old for this. He's too old to be going on these adventures, and he's too old to do this. And that's why he called on Luke. And I don't think it's a coincidence that he said all of this in the same exchange in which he passed the lightsaber to him. I think that the lightsaber kind of acted as a conduit almost as to what he's saying, his words and his meaning, his the call to adventure for Luke. He was passing this lightsaber to him, as a way of pleading to him to enter the fray and to enter the fight. And obviously Luke Skywalker did. And that's exactly what happened with Rey, but I'll get into that in a minute. I'm going to get round to, first I'm going to talk about something I started to think about, and I did briefly mention this at the start of the video, and that's Excalibur, the legend of Excalibur. Obviously, you know, most of you know the sword, the legendary sword of King Arthur. Now, for this specific bit, I'm going to be referencing just the Excalibur film, the 1970s, I think it was 1970s, 1980s John Borman film, Excalibur. And the purpose of Excalibur specifically in that film. If you've seen that film, then you will know that, and I think this is actually, this can be said with most stories, fables of Excalibur and King Arthur, etc. And that's that the sword itself was never really intended to be used as a weapon. That's not really what it was primarily, what it stood for. What the sword stood for was the call to adventure, very much like the lightsaber, very much like the Skywalker lightsaber. It was the call to adventure. It was the call to adventure for King Arthur. It was the symbol for him that he needed to enter the fray. He needed to heal the wounds of his land, and he needed to take up the throne. He needed to be the hero. And obviously that's what he did. But what's most interesting about it is that if you know the tales of King Arthur, or at least specifically what happened in that film, then you will know that at the end of the film, Excalibur itself was not necessarily lost, but was given up. King Arthur told one of the knights to actually take Excalibur and throw it into the lake, to return it to the Lady of the Lake. And the reason why he said this, and this is I believe this is very, very relevant in terms of my comparison to the Skywalker lightsaber, is that he said that when the sword is needed again, it will rise, it will come back, but when it's needed again. And I think that that tells a lot about the symbolism of the sword and what the sword at this point in time meant to King Arthur. I think King Arthur realised that the sword was a symbol. The sword was the call to adventure, and that was why he gave the sword up, because the sword did what it needed to do. It fulfilled its purpose. It called the intended hero to adventure. That hero was himself. He answered the call to adventure, and the deed was done. The adventure was completed. You know, his task was completed, and therefore the sword's purpose was completed. It wasn't needed anymore. So the sword was returned, and as he said, the sword will come back when it's needed again. And this actually, there was another example of this, and this is my favourite film, the film that actually started storytelling and the industry, the love of the industry for me, and that's Krull, the 1983 dark fantasy film. Now, in that film, if any of you are familiar with it, there was another weapon / symbol that was used in it, the glaive. In that film, the protagonist, Prince Colwyn, he went on a similar journey, and his Excalibur, or his Skywalker lightsaber, if you will, was the glaive. Right until the point where he actually claims the glaive, he thought that it was just a symbol. He even refers to it. He says that the glaive is nothing but an ancient symbol. It doesn't really exist. But obviously it did exist, and he did actually claim it. And so the actual glaive itself, it is a symbol. It works as both a symbol, and then obviously it has functionality. He does actually use it as a weapon. But the point I'm making is that the glaive was Colwyn's Excalibur. You know, the glaive was Colwyn's Skywalker lightsaber. And I think that that's something, that's a trend that you could probably compare it to a lot of different fantasy films or sword and sandal films. But right now we're focusing on Star Wars. And I think that that is very much the point with the Skywalker lightsaber. The Skywalker lightsaber is Excalibur. The sword appears, it reappears, and it vanishes. It comes back only when it's needed. When it's not needed, when it's fulfilled its purpose, it disappears again. And much like Excalibur at the end of the film, much like the glaive at the end of Krull, at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, the Skywalker lightsaber did disappear the exact same way, or at least in the exact same tone, fashion, so to speak, as the glaive and Excalibur. It was lost in a duel with Darth Vader. But the reason why this shouldn't really be considered as too much of a negative thing that happened in the film, too much of like a grave loss, is because of what the lightsaber actually stood for. You know, if you think about it, Luke Skywalker never really had, at this point, he never had a huge connection to that lightsaber. He had a moderate connection to it simply because it was his father's lightsaber. But I think the reason why he didn't have as big a connection with the lightsaber as you'd think he would was because of what the lightsaber was. It was simply a symbol of the call to adventure for him, you know. But at this point, when he lost the lightsaber to Darth Vader, when he lost his hands and the lightsaber, for all intents and purposes, was lost in the abyss, it didn't really, what difference did it make? It had absolutely no bearing on the storytelling. It had absolutely no effect on the overall story arc, or at least the mission of Luke Skywalker, because by this point of The Empire Strikes Back, the lightsaber had already fulfilled its purpose. The lightsaber had made the call to adventure. It had called out to Luke, and Luke answered the call. And by the time of The Empire Strikes Back, he was already well within the rebel ranks. He was solidified in it. He'd already fully embraced his role in the rebel alliance and what he was supposed to do. So by this point, the lightsaber, it wasn't relevant. It had no more purpose. It had already done what it needed to do. And as we know, after many years after that point, after The Empire Strikes Back, the lightsaber reappeared again in The Force Awakens. And this gets to my final point. As the lightsaber appeared to Luke Skywalker in the original Star Wars film, as it was all presented to him, as it were, the same way that Excalibur was to King Arthur, the same way the glaive was to Prince Colwyn, the lightsaber was presented or revealed to Rey. And what happened when she touched the lightsaber, she received that Force vision, etc. And then Maz Kanata came in and she basically summed it all up, saying that lightsaber was Luke's and his father's before him, and now it calls to you. So this kind of like, this is like my overall end point, just to kind of wrap things up here, is that this is the second time that the Excalibur of Star Wars has come back, that it has made the call to adventure to the intended hero. The intended hero this time is Rey. Rey is now in possession of the Skywalker lightsaber, the same way that Luke was. But the lightsaber itself, this is what's so important you have to take into account, is that the lightsaber itself, as a weapon, it doesn't really have an owner. The lightsaber has no real owner. It did once, a very long time ago. It was Anakin's. But the fact of the matter is, after Anakin lost the lightsaber, it became something else. It became more than a tool, more than a weapon. It became a symbol. So by this point, the lightsaber doesn't belong to anyone. It never really belonged to Luke. Luke created his own lightsaber. The green lightsaber that was seen in Return of the Jedi, that is Luke's lightsaber. That is the weapon that he crafted. His personal stamp is on it. That is his weapon. His father's lightsaber is not his. His father's lightsaber, the Skywalker lightsaber, is a symbol now. It basically belongs, or pseudo belongs, to anybody who answers the call, or anybody who has been called to adventure by that lightsaber. And right now, it's Rey. So I think that for all of the fans that have basically been up in arms about this and raving about how it's not Rey's lightsaber, it's Luke's lightsaber, or it's Anakin's lightsaber, I think you kind of need to put it all into perspective now, especially if you watch this video, or even if you already came to this conclusion yourself. The fact is, the lightsaber is currently Rey's in the same way that in the original trilogy it was at that point Luke's. It was never fully his in all sense of the word, but it was sort of his, because he was using it. He was using it because he needed it, the same way that Rey needed it in The Force Awakens. But I believe that by the end of, or even by the beginning of Episode 8, Rey will not have that lightsaber anymore for one reason or another. Although, to be honest, the whole theme of this video is that there will be a specific reason. The reason why Rey will lose possession of this lightsaber is because the Skywalker lightsaber is not hers. The Skywalker lightsaber is a symbol. She will, in no doubt, she will craft her own lightsaber the exact same way that Luke Skywalker did, and that lightsaber will be hers. And by one means or another, the Skywalker lightsaber will disappear. I don't think it'll be destroyed. I think maybe it could be stored somewhere. Maybe it'll get lost again, lost in the ocean, lost in space, or something like that. But I do believe that the lightsaber will be out of Rey's possession either in Episode 8 or Episode 9. But the point I'm making is that this lightsaber does not strictly belong to her. It is a symbol. She will lose it the same way that Luke lost it, because it's necessary. And it's necessary because the lightsaber is a symbol and nothing else now. It's elevated from just being a weapon of a Jedi to something much, much more. And I think that that's pretty genius writing on behalf of the writers at Lucasfilm, or specifically the new Star Wars films. So yeah, that's basically my theory on it. But I'd like to thank, I'd definitely like to thank Prince and his videos concerning this, because it was originally Prince's video at Urban Acolyte TV that kind of inspired this theory, or at least got me thinking. It got me thinking and reflecting, and that's how I came up with this theory. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Let me know if you agree, if after watching this has made you rethink your views on the Skywalker lightsaber, as to whether or not at this point it really is just Anakin's lightsaber, or if it is indeed a symbol. Thanks very much for watching anyway. I'm gonna stop this now because we're at nearly 18 minutes, but thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all again very soon for more reviews of the 0.45 lightsabers and basically everything else. So thanks very much, and see you all again very soon.